So we don't know exactly how this whole AI wave plays out. Some people like Dario Amodei this week are saying that AI could potentially wipe out half of all entry-level jobs within a couple of years. Others, like Giggly Orez, believe that it will create more roles than it replaces. But if you're already sitting on the sidelines waiting to see which way this falls, you're probably already falling behind. Hi, I'm Stephen, and in this episode of the AI Transition, I'm going to be turning to a useful old idea, that of Pascal's wager. Now, he was a 17th century French mathematician and philosopher who, back in the 17th century, the big issue of the day was the existence of God. Doesn't get much bigger than that. And his treatise was that even if the probability of God existing was small, the potential reward or punishment was infinite. So therefore, isn't it safer and more rational to live as if God exists because the potential benefit outweighs the potential loss? So taking that, what's the smartest bet that you can make right now within this AI transition? Might not be the existence of God, but maybe it's not far off for a lot of us. What can you do in the middle of all of this when there's no clear answers? So to help us explore that, I'm bringing in someone whose work I rate really highly, that of Nat B. Jones. He's an engineer, leader, strategist, and his videos cut through the hype with clarity and pragmatism with a strong focus on personal agency. So let's dive in with Nat's take on the Pascal's wager and how it's applied to your career.
This is like the Pascal's wager of tech careers. Fundamentally, the idea behind Pascal's wager is that you kind of need to live your life a certain way, regardless of what you believe. I think that's sort of the insight we need to take for AI right now. If you are a pessimist, if you agree with Dario Amodei's take this week that half of entry-level jobs are going to go away, okay, that's what you believe. If you're an optimist and you believe along with, say, Gergely Oros, that entry-level jobs may actually scale, there's some evidence of that. He's talked to folks at GitHub, talked to folks at Shopify, because entry-level roles represent culture change and people coming in who are better at AI, et cetera. Great, that's what you believe. My point is this: regardless of which side you take on that bet, you have a single problem to solve in your career. You have to figure out how to get better at solving high quality problems. Because at the end of the day, if you have strong agency as a career trait and you can solve high quality problems, you are ready, whether you live in Dario's world and you need to manage fleets of agents, or whether you live in Gergely's world and you have more entry-level roles and you're working in enterprise environments.
So I think that's bang on. And honestly, I probably lean more towards Dario being right. I do think that a lot of entry-level roles are going to disappear in the next couple of years. Maybe not overnight, but soon enough. And fast enough that people are probably going to get caught really off guard. Because I don't think society is really paying attention to this the way that they should. And I do think about this a lot because I've got two daughters who are in high school right now, so it's not really theoretical for me. Very soon they're going to be stepping into a job market that looks nothing like the one that I entered. And from also what I'm seeing in coaching rooms and inside big programs and leadership teams, etc., the people who are adapting the best aren't the ones who've picked the right prediction. They're the ones building the mindset and the skills that will serve them in the future. It's not about being right per se right now. It's having that mindset that you've got that ability to adapt. And that's what agency is. It's not just the hustle. It's about ability to walk towards complexity, stay calm in ambiguity, and make progress even when you don't have all the answers. Traditionally, we did want to move forward with programs and with plans when we're a bit more sure on where things were going. That's just not going to be the case just now. But standing still, that really isn't the option anymore. So let's hear a bit more from Nate about what skills are probably going to be needed.
I do regard engineering work as a proxy for a lot of other works. If you have to have a lot of engineers at an enterprise, you have to have a lot of other jobs that just go with that. Comms jobs, marketing jobs, customer success jobs, product jobs, designer jobs. And so in a sense, engineering is the core of tech. And if the bet on engineering goes one way or the other, the rest of the tech market will follow. And we should probably be more honest about that. Now, are there going to be differences here and there? Yes. So that's the first thing. I want to be really honest that we live in a world where I think we should talk about it as a Pascal's wager problem In other words, we should behave as if we need to prepare to solve high quality problems, regardless of which way we think the world is going to go.
So I think that was a really important point, and one that I don't think gets said out loud enough. Everyone focuses on the engineers within an IT context, and that's fair enough. They're on the front lines, but if the engineering layer shifts, then everything else moves around it too. You can't hollow out just the engineering roles and expect marketing and product or customer success to stay untouched. All of these roles are entangled. If engineering gets disrupted, the whole ecosystem is going to get disrupted and reorganized. And honestly, it's not just tech. You could swap in doctors and talk about what's happening in AI and diagnostics and workflow automation, or you could swap in accountants and where audit and compliance tasks are getting already eaten by large language models. So it's the same structural pattern that's going on here. When that foundation shifts, everything built on top of it also gets stress tested as well. So applying Pascal's wager again here isn't about your personal career safety. Not just about that. It's about understanding that your value is tied to your adaptability, your ability to move up the value chain as automation moves underneath the roles that you were traditionally doing. So preparing to solve higher quality problems isn't abstract. It's probably the most rational move that you can make, regardless of the industry that you're in, where the core assumptions of your profession are up for grabs.
And let's be honest, it kind of is a belief at this point. You can point to evidence either way. You can argue about which way it's going. I'm not really interested in having that debate here. And I think that people who dive too deep on that debate are missing the actionable steps you can take to actually start to answer the AI question in practice, what I would call the agency principle. Learning how to do problem recognition well, learning how to do solution design well, learning how to resource marshal, learning how to execute, learning how to integrate. These are all things that you can do regardless of whether you're in engineering or other tasks. They're meta skills and you need them. I've talked about other meta skills in the past, but one of the things that keeps coming through for me is this idea of solving problems with high agency isn't going away.
So I do think it's kind of like a belief at this point, and I'm seeing a lot of strongly held beliefs on either side of this argument now. And you can point to the evidence on either side. Look, personally, I do think there are a lot more challenges than opportunities that are going to happen in the next couple of years. Maybe more of the medium to long term, the opportunities are just incredible and amazing and transformative. But I don't think that's the important thing here, is having that debate about which way it's going to go. But because it is going to go one way or other, what I think is true is that this is a monumental change, no matter which way that it goes. And if you dive too deeply into the debate on being one side or other, maybe you're missing the point of what are the actionable steps that you personally can take to start answering that AI question, how it's going to affect you and your family and the work that's around you. And that would be what I call that agency principle. How personally are you going to be able to deal with this?
I think it's really, really important to recognize that and not pretend that high agency has no value in the future. And if you come back to me and you say, well, it doesn't because it's all going to code away anyway, that's fine. But again, go back to Pascal's wager. Imagine that you're right. Would you have wanted to spend the time between now and whenever you believe that dark future will arrive doing nothing and complaining about it? Or would you rather prepare for a world that you have some agency over? I think regardless of what you believe, that's the more interesting place to be. It's also the less risky place for your career. Because either way, having more agency doesn't hurt you. And waiting, if you're wrong, if Dario's incorrect, if Gargoli is right, waiting and doing nothing and saying the world is going to end and jobs are going to be over profoundly hurts your career.
So maybe here I start to get a bit more blunt, because this one really resonated with me. Because even if you do believe in that worst case scenario, that it's all going to be automated, that the jobs are going to vanish, what exactly is your plan then? Is it just to sit there and wait for the lights to go out entirely, just to give up? I don't think that mindset helps anyone. It doesn't help yourself grow, it doesn't help your team, and it's not going to help your future self. And if you're wrong, if the future turns out to be more collaborative, more hybrids, slightly more egalitarian, I mean, who knows? Maybe even more human than you expected, then doing nothing is probably the most expensive decision that you could make. Because this is going to go fast. There is not the luxury of waiting 5 and 10 years and decades in order for this to come. So what it really comes down to for me is this, is that do you want to prepare for a future that you can influence, or surrender to one that's already you've decided is lost? Because Pascal's wager isn't just a philosophical idea here, it's a practical filter. And by that filter, agency is going to win every time. It's better to doing something than to doing nothing at all.
The point is this: we need to talk about emotional clarity, discernment in a world drowning in data and options, how you find signal, the ability to craft connection with people. You are getting flown into interviews more and more these days. You are going to be expected to be human because that is the only guarantee people have that you're not an AI. And that gets back to how companies now are actually answering this vexed question around signal versus noise in the candidate pipeline. And this is why I am not telling you that everybody should go out and vibe code a website and stick the code on GitHub. Is that an answer for some people? Sure. But the problem is, if you really ask yourself what you're proving there, it is another way of showing that you can solve problems that is a step removed from the resume, which is traditionally where you did that. And the reason why the resume is useless is because ChatGPT has essentially made every resume perfect. And so in a world where every resume is perfect, it offers no signal.
So I actually had this conversation in the workplace today. And I think it's something that a lot of people are quietly realizing, even if they're not saying it out loud. Because we're beginning now to flatten the playing field when it comes to presentation. Resumes, LinkedIn profiles, your PowerPoints, your portfolios, they're all polished now. And if they're not, then they absolutely should be. All the tools are out there. All of those AI tools have made them frictionless. Everything now is getting to the point where it should look perfect. But by that same standard, then also nothing stands out. And this is why I think we're beginning to see the shifts about the more human and the personal point, because it's not just about showing what you can do in paper. It's how you can show and think what you can do in the room. You're not going to stand out in paper. You're not going to stand out in your CV because everyone's CV is fantastic. They're all going to look great. It's all going to have the most fantastic turns of phrase. But how can you go into a room and potentially build trust? That's hard. Can you properly connect with people? I've seen some people who have just got this natural ability that when they walk into the room, they can just make these immediate connections. And then I've also known some really, really smart and clever people who can walk into a room and nobody knows that they're there. These people are going to struggle more in the future. And those things are harder to fake, that sort of personal connections, at least for right now, right? The only real signal left is that personal one. You're not going to get a real signal there from your CV, but you will be able to when you can make that one-on-one personal connection that's there. So if people are rushing to vibe code something or building another smart dashboard, maybe you can work on something else of that AI can't do. Your ability to relate, to discern, to carry weight in a room, to tell a joke, right? So what is it that's going to give you that sort of human edge? Because that's what's going to separate someone who just looks capable from someone who actually is. So let's hear Nate just wrap this up now.
I don't need you to believe that the jobs will be better and it will be an amazing future. Maybe that's a step too far for you. But you can believe that working on these skill sets is going to have value, because even if you disagree and you're like a total pessimist, it's still the rational choice. It's still the correct bet for you, for your career, selfishly.
So I think that's the perfect place to land. You don't have to buy into some utopian vision of AI. You don't have to pretend to be even excited about it. But if you want to stay in the game, if you want to stay relevant, then I think building these human skills isn't optional. Because whether the future plays out, like Dario says, or swings the other way entirely, the people who have options are the ones who took action when things were still uncertain. Don't wait until this sets. If there's a takeaway here, it's this: you don't need perfect clarity. What you need is momentum. You need action. You need to start moving. Start solving better problems. Learn to cut through noise. Build agency like it's your job, because soon it might be the only thing that separates you from the people who get left behind. So if this resonated with you, I'd love you to subscribe and follow where you are watching or listening to this podcast, because the world is changing. Hopefully this wasn't too heavy or grim. I still think there's opportunity here for people who are willing to take that step forward. You still have a choice and you still matter. So thanks for watching. I'm Stephen, and I'll see you in the next one.